On September 2025, Nepal, a small Himalayan nation between India and China, was suddenly engulfed in flames, both literally and politically. What began as a government move to regulate social media quickly spiraled into the largest youth uprising in decades. Protesters stormed parliament, dozens were killed in clashes, the prime minister resigned, and a new generation, Gen Z, took to the streets demanding change. This is the story of how Nepal went from a social media ban to full-scale political crisis. The immediate trigger was a law introduced by the Nepalese government. The law required global social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, X, TikTok, to register with the state, set up local offices, and appoint representatives inside the country. Officials claimed the goal was to regulate harmful content, misinformation, and tax revenues from tech giants. But when these companies refused to comply, Nepal's government blocked access to over 20 major platforms. For millions of young Nepalese, this was more than just losing social apps. It felt like losing their freedom of speech. The generation that had grown up online, connected, global, outspoken, suddenly saw its digital world collapse overnight. But frustration in Nepal had been building long before this. Nepal is one of the poorest countries in South Asia. Unemployment is high, corruption is endemic. Political elites are often accused of nepotism and self-enrichment, while ordinary citizens struggle with rising living costs. For Gen Z, the social media ban was the last straw. Within hours, protests erupted across Kathmandu and other major cities. At first, they were peaceful, students marching with placards demanding freedom of expression, but the crowds grew larger. Tensions rose, and by the third day, the protests turned violent. Clashes broke out between protesters and security forces. Police used tear gas, batons, rubber bullets. Protesters hurled rocks, set fire to barricades, and stormed government buildings. In just the first days, at least 19 people were killed. According to officials, hundreds more were wounded. The most shocking scenes came when protesters stormed Nepal's parliament. Inside and around the complex, offices were trashed, furniture burned. The anger of the crowd was directed not only at politicians, but at the symbols of privilege they felt had betrayed them. Luxury hotels, homes of senior leaders, and administrative buildings became targets. The government responded with curfews in Kathmandu. Soldiers were deployed to patrol the streets. Armored vehicles surrounded parliament, but the pressure kept mounting. Facing nationwide anger, Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli announced his resignation. His departure left Nepal in a political vacuum. Talks began to form an interim government. Protest leaders demanded new elections, anti-corruption measures, and more accountability. What makes this crisis unique is its digital origin. It began with the blocking of social media, platforms that had become lifelines for Nepal's youth. For Gen Z, these platforms weren't just for memes and music. They were tools for organizing, speaking out, and holding leaders accountable. When the government tried to restrict them, it inadvertently united a generation already disillusioned by corruption. Within days, the protests transformed from a fight for digital freedom into a full-scale anti-government revolt. Analysts say Nepal's crisis is a warning sign. Across the world, governments are grappling with how to regulate tech giants. But where is the line between regulation and censorship? How can leaders balance national sovereignty with digital freedom? Nepal shows what can happen when that balance is lost. In a country where trust in politicians is already fragile, the attempt to control social media lit a fuse that exploded into mass unrest. Other nations in South Asia, and even beyond, are now watching closely. For now, Nepal remains in turmoil. Dozens are dead. A prime minister has fallen. Parliament has been stormed, and a new generation is demanding change. The outcome of this crisis may reshape Nepal's democracy and could even influence how countries across the world handle the future of the digital age.
네.